Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bare Bones Wargaming, a show with no frills, no whistles, no bells, just a man, a camera, and his game. Today I'm just doing some final thoughts on the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, which I've been playing here some. And it's not intended to be a review. I'm probably going to write one, to be honest, later on. But just some final thoughts that I had about the game, just some general ideas. Kind of the bookend to the first video I did when I gave my first impressions. First of all, I'd like to say I've gotten some feedback on some rules that I made mistakes on, so I encourage everyone who watches my videos to take a look at BoardGameGeek.com and take a look at the listing for the game, because there is some things that are pointed out under my video replays there that should be very helpful to everyone, including to myself. There are a few things that were mentioned that I'm still a little puzzled about. And I'm going to have to double check on the rules myself. One of them being on the CBI front, because it was mentioned in one of the comments that you don't have to put like air units and stuff for the Commonwealth and China on the track, but then I'm kind of wondering why the question mark, if you look here at the card, why it says development and replacement, because development you can only put one unit on the production track from the unit's pool. So I'm not sure why that's an option. Maybe that was just an earlier misprint, something that was thrown by the side. So anyway, so check that out, because part of the point of my videos here is I'm not trying to be some kind of expert, being like, yes, this is how you play it. I'm just playing the game to the best of my ability, throwing it out there and saying, hey, look, take a look at this. Hopefully this will help some folks make decisions. Do they like the flow of the game? That sort of thing. It also helps some folks to play it right off the bat. So even with the mistakes I've made, if this helps somebody to play their game, boom, out of the gate, and they got all the rules right, hey, that's part of why I am doing this. So let me just give some thoughts about the game. There are some rules that were pointed out that are tricky to make sure that you keep track of, such as, for example, naval moves costing 1 extra point to move into space if there's an air unit that's nearby. That's one thing to consider. Other things to consider is apparently the U.S. only gets 8 cards, or the Allies get 8 cards, if the U.S. declares war. So Japan really would have to declare war on the Commonwealth and then declare war on the U.S. for them to get the full 10 cards. So that's also interesting too. That really does alter my strategy for the future. I do like the flow of the game. I do like how it plays. It plays very quickly. I do like the fact that you choose your cards. That's very cool, especially in a 2-player game. You know, there's a certain amount of bluff and stuff that can go on with that. I also like the fact that it is a good representation to me of how the war could have gone and could have flowed. Because a lot of times here with the Japanese strategies I've tried, both in the video I did and a couple other games, it really does come down to those critical battles. You know, it does give you that feel like it did in 1942. I mean, let's face it, if the Coral Sea or Midway had gone the other way, what if the U.S. had been the one to lose, say, 5 carriers total between those 2 battles? How would that have gone? I mean, eventually the U.S. did have war weariness at the end, as has been pointed out by a number of different authors, you know, because of how bloody and how long it was taking to get through the Pacific campaign. Even climbing the ladder down here in the Solomons, I mean, that took most of 1943 just to climb the ladder, you know, let alone, I mean, Tarawa wasn't until late in 1943, November of that year, coming across the Central Pacific here. So I do like that. And again, yeah, as a Japanese player, you need some good die rolls. But quite frankly, as a Japanese player, in reality, you needed to have some of those big battles go your way. And I mean, I think that's true of any military conflict. So I do like that. I like the scale, because it does play so fast and furious. Even if you screw up early, you could quickly reset the game. 50 counters, board small. I mean, you know, it's very cool to me. So it is a game that, quite frankly, probably the best compliment you can give any game. It's one I'm going to pull back out again, because when I feel the itch, as it were, to play a Pacific Theater game, and I don't want to get as involved as Across the Pacific, which, by the way, is still my go-to game on the Pacific Theater. I love that game, but if I had that game out right now, it would cover my entire table. I have to put the charts on a secondary table over here that I use to put rulebooks on and stuff. So when I really want to play an elaborate and really want to, you know, grapple with all that, with the chit pool and stuff, you know, Across the Pacific is my go-to game. To me, this game, it feels like a step up from like a Victory in the Pacific kind of game. Now, granted, I'll be curious to see the Pacific War, Pearl Harbor to the Philippines, which I have not tried yet. I'll be curious to see how that plays. So, but this game is going to have a good place in my game collection. It's definitely a keeper to me, without a doubt. So, yeah, it is one that's going to stick around. It is one that it's one I'm going to continue to play with and tinker with. Now, the solo rules, after playing these plays with the solo rules, honestly, and again, whatever feedback anybody wants to give me, especially I know there's a lot of solo players out there like myself. You know, my wife will play games with me like Twilight Struggle and stuff, but she will not touch one of these. I mean, as close as I can get her to Wargame is, quite frankly, Twilight Struggle. Please, let's not debate and argue about whether Twilight Struggle is a wargame or not. That'll be a separate video for another time, so to speak. Or to quote Conan the Destroyer, that is another story for another time. With this game, though, I do like my die rolls because, again, it gives a variety. Nothing was guaranteed. Nothing was set. I do feel like I do need to come up with some kind of idea for passing, because Japan passing does give them the option. Maybe I'm going to start doing something where the Allies, if they have, let's say, 6 cards left, then they have to roll, you know, a 6 or greater, or maybe 5 cards left and you have to roll a 6 on a d6 to have them pass. All those kind of things like that, I'm going to kind of tinker with. I'm also tinkering with, and I do think it might not throw off the balance completely, but hey, you know, tinkering to play solo is part of what I do. I might actually try like some kind of chit pull thing, just to see, based on the number of cards each player has in the game, and see, you know, does that make it too unbalanced? Does that give too many actions in a row? I don't know. But again, in my quest for making solo play, I'm going to go ahead and tinker with it. And if it doesn't work, hey, then I cast it aside and go with the stuff that does work to try and make it at least a fun and enjoyable game on my own. So the bottom line is this. If you like the Pacific Theater and you want a game that plays pretty quick and gives you basically all the strategic options that existed, then I do recommend this game. I do like the fact that there's also a knockout possibility. I suppose one could argue that this does feel like Axis and Allies Pacific on steroids. I have to think about that one a little bit more, but that thought has crossed my mind. I'll just throw it out there for folks who want to consider that idea, because I do think that game does a nice job of the whole victory point thing, giving Japan a chance to win by basically, again, dragging out the war, making the defensive perimeters and such. So, again, just to kind of finish up here and wrap up this very short little video, this game is, to me, worthwhile tracking down. I wouldn't mind seeing it in a little souped up format, if you will, a little bigger board and such. But it's definitely worth the time. If you like the Pacific Theater of World War II, I would recommend it. This is definitely a game way up at the grand strategy level. But again, with my solo play, you can kind of put yourself in the middle of, you know, hey, I'm Admiral Nimitz, and here's FDR and General Marshall saying, hey, this is what we want to be doing here, and Admiral King, I guess, for that matter, too. And the same thing on the Japanese side. You know, you can be basically Yamamoto with some pressure coming on from there. I have to work on the solo rules for the Japanese side, to be honest, but usually when I play games solo, I'll be honest, I usually play the aggressive side actively, because I don't know, just for me in solo play, I think it works out better. So, again, bottom line, to reiterate this kind of whole video, check out the Board Game Geek page to see, you know, some of the mistakes I made, so that you don't make the same mistakes and you can enjoy your play right out of the gate. I do think this is worthwhile. I am going to keep it. It is a game I can see pulling out from time to time that I want to play Pacific Theater, but don't want to get too many counters and too complicated on the board. So I'm glad I tracked it down. I'm glad that it exists, and it's a lot of fun, and I do recommend it. Again, I'll give more details on different parts of the game and stuff when I do a written review for Board Game Geek, but as of right now, that's kind of the way I would sum it up. It's a keeper. It's staying in my collection. It does fill a void for, or not a void, but it fills a spot for me, and I do recommend it. So, this is, or has been, I should say, Tim Korchnoi for Bare Bones Wargaming, wishing you victory and good times in all your games. I'll see you next time. I'm not sure when I'll see you next time. I gotta be honest. This just showed up on my doorstep, and this just looks totally cool because I like Target for Today and I like B-17 Flying Fortress Leader. So I'll just say this: if anybody is interested in me shooting some videos, showing some gameplay of this, I would definitely be up for that because, I can't resist the urge to fly the unfriendly skies. Let's put it that way. So, again, Tim Korchnoi signing off. Talk to you again in the future.